Zoom stuff out of the way. Okay, so yeah, we provide a service called Jupyter at NERSC, and I personally think it's an amazing service. I use it when I do any kind of work on the system. I like to use it. So if you're not familiar, it's actually we call it Jupyter. It encompasses several different sort of things, right? So one of those things is notebooks. Some people may have heard of these. So this is for doing live code compilation. So if you're sometimes like schools, like different classes use this kind of thing where it's almost like a way to do little exercises. You can basically execute small blocks of code at a time. You could use it as like a calculator. You can literally type in, whatever calculations you need to do and execute them in order. Um, it's really useful for visualizations. You can run live visualizations, so you can have your code and it'll spit out a plot, and then you can tweak something and execute it again, and it'll just tweak it and show you the plot again. Um, yeah, this narrative text option is great I've done this, with making like tutorials for people, well, where I'll use Markdown, which is a like a text rendering language. So this is in code. It kind of looks like maybe like LaTeX or something. Like you can write some text, and then you can include some code that whoever is using it can run. That might be helpful for explaining like what is the code going to do, or if you need to make changes, how do you do that? Things like that. Um, and there is some interactivity, like some widgets that are possible too. Um, I don't remember what they're called now because it's been a while, but there are some widgets that you can use in Jupyter. So in general, you can use it for all kinds of things. You can use it for running your code. Probably not the most efficient. What I would recommend using it for is things like data exploration. If you're doing some kind of, yeah, visualization, maybe when you're actively developing a script or writing some kind of code, it's good for, it has a nice graphical environment. So, I mean, I love Vim. I like using Vim, but I don't want to be like developing code. And I personally wouldn't want to do that. So I like being able to like click and move around and copy paste a little bit easier. So those kinds of things are really powerful, but it can do so many more things than just even what I'm mentioning. People do like to use it for machine learning because, for example, when I used to do the machine learning I was doing in grad school, I could literally actively watch the little loss function, like I would plot the loss value and I would just watch it converge. And I could even stop it when I was in that active stage of trying to tweak my training hyperparameters or whatever. I would be using Jupyter to do the kind of interactive part. And then when I was ready for like a full scale run and I didn't need to interact with the hyperparameters anymore, then I could convert my notebook into a script and then submit it for a batch job. So that's personally like how I liked to use Jupyter. Um, so I think I'm going to just go ahead and go into the live demo. We might come back to these slides in a moment, but I think it'll be easier if I just show you. Um, okay, so here I am at jupyter.ners.gov. Similar to what we saw yesterday with like Iris, you're going to sign in using Federated ID. So you're going to click on there's only one button, click on it, then go to NERSC. In my case, I have my username and password already saved because I am lazy and I don't want to type it in. And then I'm going to press login. I'm going to pull up my authenticator. I haven't logged in 24 hours, so I need to retype it in. Oh, I'm waiting. Mine was just about to reset. 908 579. Did everybody get their MFA set up yesterday if you hadn't already? Give us a thumbs up or let us know. Um, oh, cool. Okay. Did people get it set up? I can't actually see the participants, so oops. Did anyone try to get their MFA set up yesterday? Or you had it already?
We'll take silence as, yeah, you're good.
Okay, good, good. All right. Well, if you didn't, let us know. And actually, this is a really, really great moment for us to do a little bit of learning. So the nice thing, oh gosh, I have too many Zoom things at the top of my screen. Sorry. Um, okay. Whoops. Where did Jupyter go? Oh, it replaced oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I have Go back to Jupyter. Okay, so at the top of my Jupyter screen here, it says that there's some maintenance or there's some issues that are happening and they may impact Jupyter. So in the past, we've had problems where people weren't aware that there were maintenance or something going on. They would try to use Jupyter and then it wouldn't work and they'd be like, oh my God, Jupyter's broken. But of course, Jupyter itself is running on our system, and then when we launch one of these different sessions, it's also launching on Perlmutter. So if Perlmutter or some part of Perlmutter, or in this case Spin, is having a maintenance or having some kind of issue, then some of these services may not work until we get them fixed. And so the nice thing is we can go, and if you remember yesterday, this was my like top tip, always go check. So this MOTD, it stands for message of the day. Could we kind of rebranded it to live status because nobody remembered what MOTD was. Um, but it looks like, let's see, is this, so we're gonna scroll, spin. Okay, so this is system degraded will terminate or experience sluggish performance. Okay, so it's in active investigation and looks like there's going to be an update at noon. So we can just try it, and then if something isn't working, then we'll just go back to our slides. Um, Great. Okay. So again, so this is, I mean, it's kind of nice as teaching moment to just remember if you come here and something isn't working, the first thing to do is actually to go check that live status. So let's try and see if we can get a login node. Um, okay, I'm gonna let that. Oh, I think it worked. So let's go back to this for a moment then. Oops, sorry. Press this button. So we did this part right here. We authenticated, and then I actually sort of jumped the gun here and I did this choose part. So let's go to the choose. Let's go kind of zoom into the choose. So when you saw, so what the screen we were on, there was a yellow box at the top, and that's where it said there was something going on. Beneath that were a bunch of different options with start buttons. And so what this is, what you're doing is you're actually spinning up a job on Perlmutter based on certain preset sort of like job uh, parameters, okay, that we have set up for you. So you don't even have to do anything. You just click the button. So the one that I pressed was actually login node, which you learned about yesterday and a little bit today too. So this is that like foyer into Perlmutter. You just arrive, you're kind of in a shared space with other people, and you're just there to do a little bit of writing a little script or maybe checking on your job, something like that. Um, but then you can also do so the shared CPU node, I believe, is the one of the login nodes. We renamed it. Then you can also ask for an exclusive CPU node. So let's say you do want to do a little bit of testing and you want to have access to all of the cores on that node. You can just spin up a Jupyter session on an exclusive CPU node, and then you would have um, all of the resources on a single node. And the same thing for an exclusive GPU node. And then there's also something called a configurable job, and that I will show you in a moment, which is where you can basically like what Charles was talking about, these jobs, you can have different parameters, you can ask for different amounts of memory or different number of nodes and so forth. And so the configurable job is what would allow you to do that. So if you want a Jupyter instance that has access to a couple nodes or something like that, you can do that using the configurable job. Or let's say you have a reservation and you want to use the reservation, you can do that using the configurable job. Okay, let's see if it'll let me go back to Jupyter. Oh, so it worked. Okay. Well, first let's go to the hub control panel. Yeah, so now you can see here. So now that I've started up a server, so let's say I closed my window. Okay, I've now closed my Jupyter window. I can go back to Jupyter and my server is still running. So just because I closed the window or the tab or whatever, doesn't mean my job has stopped. So in one way, if you're done with your Jupyter instance, you should go ahead and stop it because otherwise it's still running. But the convenient thing is if you do accidentally close or you run out of battery and your personal computer stops, it doesn't mean that whatever was running on Perlmutter in your Jupyter session immediately stops just because you disconnected from it. Okay. So it's really nice because I can just press server and it takes me back to where I was. And let me change to light mode just to make things easier for us. Okay, so now I'm actually on a Perlmutter login node. You can see login node 16 right here, and this is a terminal. Okay, so the same as using SSH on a terminal on my machine, I now have I'm now on Perlmutter, and uh, I can do anything I would want to do in a terminal environment on Perlmutter, I can actually do within Jupyter as well. Sometimes this is convenient because there are certain things that I like to do, like uh, copying files from one location to another. I can just use the terminal for that. But then if I want to go and look at a notebook of some kind, I'm going to use my file browser on the side over here. And I think it's a little zoomed in, which is why it's showing up weird. But I'm going to I can click around and I can actually launch stuff right from, I don't know if there's anything in here that might be, if they've probably been purged from here actually. Um, but I can actually open things directly from here. So these are my sim links to other projects. Let's see if I have anything to pull up. I don't do a lot of this stuff anymore. So let's see if there's anything in here. Dang it. Oh yeah. Um, so, but if these things were working, they would probably just go ahead and open. Let's see if any of these will open. Yay, this will open. Um, so do you see, I just double clicked on this, right? You can also, in my case, I have a right click on my mouse. If you are working in an environment that has a right click, then you can go in here, you can rename it. So things that you might be familiar with in a regular file browser. All of these things are things you can do from the terminals. Well, maybe not all of them, but several of these things you can do from a terminal as well. But if you don't want to have to do that, you can use the file browser on the side and do that. Okay. And in the recent, there's been, oh yeah, they added all these dashboards and stuff. I haven't actually even used any of these. Um, oh, there's Git. Wow, that's great. Okay, I haven't even used any of these things. So you're welcome to look at these. Let's see, how's my memory doing? Yeah, I'm not using any of the GPU, so it should be completely nil. But if you are using your GPU, so let's say I start doing this training. So this is a Bayesian neural network. Let's say I decided I wanted to start retraining this Bayesian neural network and I want to use the GPUs, I could pull up this GPU utilization and double check that my code is actually using the GPU. Or if it is, how much is it using, right? If I've asked it to use all the GPUs I have access to and it's not using, in this case, I have one GPU available to me. Again, this is a login node, so you shouldn't be doing this anyways. On a login node, you should go and get an exclusive GPU node or even a CPU, well, CPU node wouldn't have GPUs, obviously, but in this case, you can see you'd be able to see how many GPUs there are and how much of them is being used. So that's actually really, really cool. This is stuff they've added that I haven't even seen yet. So
Yeah, that
um,
is really cool. So we
it's so
had
nice.
one question from Richard. Could you show him one more time how to do a new terminal window?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Okay, so one thing, okay, so if I close all of this, so usually it starts with this launcher right here. So this, and you can get another one of these by clicking this little plus button right here. So see this little, it says new launcher, okay? So you can click on the new launcher and then you can scroll through. Well, first, it'll show you some notebook options. These are different notebooks that are set up with certain environments. So in my case, I have some of these are my own environments that I had set up because of, in this case, I was training a convolutional neural network. I wanted to have certain um, libraries kind of set up for me. But then there's several that we offer you that are sort of standard from NERSC. And then you can go down here to, I don't remember, a console is like basically is like running these like in a terminal or something like that. I don't remember exactly. I don't use these options as much, but it's kind of the same thing. And then down here in other, we have a couple different options. So you can open up a terminal. So now this has become a terminal. You can also open up a markdown file. It'll make you a spare markdown file. You could open a CSV file, anything you want, Julia file. So that's another thing. Jupyter, I mean, I think kind of started out as like a Python thing, so given the PY and the Jupyter, but it's way more than that now. So you can run Julia, you can run R. I think there's a lot of other things that you can do with Jupyter now.
When we do our CUDA community calls, we do it in a Jupyter notebook, and you learn CUDA through Jupyter as well. So it's so useful, and I like it because, like, if I'm ever, doing cutting edge science and I'm on the go, I can just go to Jupyter on my iPhone or iPad and, I don't know, do an experiment if I'm, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of great actually. It's super convenient. One thing I also like to show people is this kind of it shows you what's running. And so for example, sometimes if you're running something in your terminal and you're like, "Oh, I need to kill it," or it's not, like something has gone wrong. Sometimes your notebook isn't it gets
Or
stuck
you
in.
forgot something like I do, and
Yeah. You can go here and this is kind of like the control panel if you are is that what it's called on Windows, right? It's like the force quit. So if I do this, it'll immediately close that out for me. So if I had something running in there and I didn't want to and something has gone wrong, you can always go over here to this. It looks like the stop button on like a I don't whatever whatever things that had stop buttons on them. And you can even let's say you had so in this case in this case so this is open tabs. Oh, this is where they've moved it now. So this will actually shut down the terminal from running. So now it'll actually kill it. As opposed to here it was just like closing tabs. So oh that's great. There's a recently closed. That's awesome. They've added a lot of things even since the last time I was on Jupyter. So um that's really cool. Yeah. So the best thing to do is to just get in here and play around with everything. You're not going to break anything. You're not going to do anything bad. Just get in here and just mess around. You can add little symlinks. You can add things to your favorites. You can change all kinds of different things. You can run things. The nice thing about this is like the GUI environment. You can like just click on things if you don't want to be using the terminal. Some of our new users are not really familiar with terminal or comfortable with it, and this is meant to just be like another option. Even if you are comfortable with terminal, you can also use this. Okay, a couple more things I want to show you. Let's go back to here. Oh, actually, let's go um, to the hub control panel. Okay, so I'm actually going to stop this and it'll take a second. It basically is doing like on the back end, it's doing some kind of like S cancel or S kill or something like that. So let me just show you the configurable job. So in this case, you're not going to immediately get launched into something. This is going to show you a bunch of options. And so and these should look familiar to you. These are basically the options for the job. So this should look kind of like an S batch, but it's now you can just type in and fill out each of these um, fields. So you can ask for, yeah, so that it'll show you in this case. So we have GPU nodes and they have two different types of GPUs. We have a few that are this HBM. I think this is like high bandwidth memory. I think that's what HBM stands for. But these have 80 gigs versus 40. Most of them are 40 gig, but there are some 80 gigs. So if you want, for some reason, you're running a model that you know is kind of big and you want to make sure it all fits in your memory, you can try to grab one of these 80 gig nodes. Um, you can also, like I said, if there's a reservation, it'll actually kind of cool. It'll show you. Now, you can't get in there unless your user is part of that reservation. So just because you see it here doesn't mean you can just like, haha, sneak in. But if you're part of the reservation, you should see it and then you can join it. And you could adjust if you want, a certain number. In this case, you can have, it says here maximum four for the Jupyter QoS, but let's say you do want to see like, is my, machine learning training actually scaling on multiple nodes, this would be the way to test it. Okay. Okay. So couple more things in here I want to talk about. Um, okay, so we showed all of this. So,
We had one question by Stephen, and he asked if you need to run a Jupyter script that only needs one core but lots of memory, what option is best? Login node versus shared node? I also said you could do like a reservation on one of the higher memory nodes as well. That's an option too. But if you
yeah, I guess
to weigh in,
one core, but lots of memory. I would, so, well, definitely, in general, it's not good to be running anything on a login node. So login nodes are not meant to run your training. So if you're, let's say, so if you're going to use Jupyter on a login node, it's probably because you're just working on your code or something like that. But you shouldn't necessarily be like launching your full calculation. In which case, I would say try to get an exclusive node for that. Because then you'll have all of the memory, right? If you use a shared node, you won't have access to all of the memory because it's split, right? Okay.
But then you can also reserve like one of the higher memory nodes that are available as well if
Yeah.
you really need as much memory as possible. So let's see. Well, I saw one more question. I think we're good to go.
Okay. So another thing is, so we provide quite a few, so the kernel is the thing that's running your code on the back end. And for example, if you set up a specific environment, so like a Conda environment where it has all of the packages that you need, that is something that you can use in your Jupyter by setting up a kernel in a kernel spec. So this is so you can use the defaults that we provide. And so if you remember on that launch screen, let's see, I think I have, come on. Oh, it's not in here. Okay. There's the launcher that has multiple different kernel options for you. And that's what I was saying. Like I had my special one for my like convolutional neural network versus I had another one for a different project. So those are all basically different kernels that I've asked Jupyter to have available for me to quickly spin up for me. And so the way you do that, and that's what, and this is the part where I'm like, the Jupyter documentation is fantastic. And actually, that's another thing I wanted to actually show you in real life. The Jupyter documentation is amazing. We have all kinds of, we have an overview, we have these how-to guides. These are things that a lot of users are doing very frequently. So for example, how do I use my Conda environment as a Python kernel, right? This is like most of our users are trying to do this. So I don't want to read this to you, but I want you to know it's there and you can step by step follow these instructions exactly and it will work. 100% it will work. I know because I did this a million times myself. Um, so so yeah, so that's why I don't want to necessarily go through it, like what each of these things is. But what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to create your, let's say you're using a Conda environment, you want to get it set up however you like it, and then you're going to tell Jupyter, hey, I've set up this Conda environment, please make this IPy kernel available to me under this name, and then it'll launch it for you. It'll be available in the launcher once you're ready to use it. Okay. And you can copy and paste these exactly and just change the names, right? So you'd have to remember to change your file paths, but those are basically the only things you'd have to change, or like the name. Let's say, for example, you want to change the name of it, so forth. So there's many how-to guides here. So if you find yourself needing to do, so for example, if you're trying to use a container in a Jupyter kernel, there's again specific instructions for Shifter and Podman HPC. And you're just going to go here, you're just going to copy and paste these. Make sure you change the name, like the file paths accordingly. Like that's the only thing you should probably have to change, like and the name of your container or so forth. But you shouldn't really have to change anything else, and this will work kind of out of the box. Any questions about that?
We had a good question that Helen was able to answer in the chat. Nick asked about, is there a way to see the cost of hours of running a Jupyter notebook versus like cost of a normal job? And Helen provided him the link that, the QoS policy is basically the same.
Yeah,
It's just you what resources you're using. It doesn't matter if you're doing Jupyter or Terminal. It's all about if you're accessing a node, and then you'll be charged according to that QoS.
correct. The one benefit of of using Jupyter for so there is going to be a shorter limit on how long you're allowed to run in the Jupyter QoS, but it has a higher priority. So these jobs start really fast. As you saw, I clicked on the button and it pretty much just spun up, right? So the only thing that changes is the priority is a little bit higher, just so that it can be run in this like interactive way. But I think the charge is exactly the same, right? No, it is already. So if you're on a login node, it's not charging anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you're on a login node, it doesn't charge anything. But if you once you start using a compute node, it is charging. Cool. Okay, so like I said, the documentation is amazing. I don't want to read it to you, but I want you to know where it is and that you should absolutely use it because it's going to have all the step-by-step information you need. In general, and this is I should get the information for this past year in here, but our Jupyter usage at NERSC is really going up. And you can see it has all these fantastic tools kind of built in already. So I mean, we don't make money if you use Jupyter. We're not trying to like sell it to you, but besides the fact that it's really useful and it might make your life a little bit easier. I am kind of a Jupyter shell, so okay, so I think yeah, so that's basically the main things I wanted to show about Jupyter. Um, I think I don't remember, has this presentation been uploaded already? Pending. Okay, we're working on it. We'll get it available to you there. But the main thing you need is, let's see. Oops, not that. This link right here. So that will actually take you to Jupyter. And then I'll put the link
And
to the
I'm
document.
gonna upload it right now,
Oh,
actually.
amazing. Okay. Yeah, and then the other thing you need oops. Oh, I think I closed oh no, it's here. Okay, so these are how-to guides. So let me go here. So these are the Jupyter how-to guides. And I really recommend if you find yourself needing to do any of these things, you might find that a lot of the default stuff we provide is good enough. Um, Okay, let's see. I have an ML notebook that I tried to run on exclusive computer. It does not download the models, but it does not. Okay, so where does it run on default? Should I move the dataset notebook to? In general, yes. I think there was a question about downloading models from Hugging Face yesterday in the Q&A. So if you scroll up, you might see something. I think you can run them on compute nodes, but I think you can't download them on compute nodes. Um, so. I think the compute nodes aren't connected to the broader internet. So you should get the model. You could use like Globus or something like that to download the model into your Scratch space. And you can use like a DTN or a login node to set up that transfer. But if your script is trying to download the model on a compute node, it will not be able to because the compute nodes aren't connected to the internet. Okay, I understand that just logging into a Jupyter Notebook and logging node won't be charged. Or if I run small amounts of code in a login node Jupyter, does that charge? Um, I mean, no. So it's not like detecting that you're running code versus not. Like if you're on a login node, you're
If
in there.
you haven't done an salloc, you won't be charged.
Right.
So you can test and debug on a login node.
Yeah.
That's the just keep in mind that if you submit a batch script and you do salloc, that is when you're charged.
Correct. But we do monitor the login nodes to make sure someone isn't using too much of them. So if you start running like a little Python snippet or something like that on a login node is fine. Like it's not a huge amount of compute. It's not memory intensive, anything like that. But if you start running more and more code on a login node, we'll probably be able to see it and we'll ask you to go ahead and submit to a compute node. You'd be surprised. Your allocation actually can go a pretty long way.
Everything you do is monitored.
Well, yes,
Everything.
everything you do is
There's no
monitored.
probably about it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
If you
There's
run
Yeah.
a compute node via Jupyter, even if you open a terminal from there and do, editing anything, your timing elapsed or be charged because you actually are on a compute node to
On a
do all
compute
these
node,
things.
yeah. But the question is about getting onto a login node and
I
then running.
understand. I'm just trying to warn people.
yeah.
Yes, 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 exactly. But also, if you're a new user, like I know you might be worried about using your allocation, but I think more often than not, we have projects that don't use their allocation. So just, that's when Iris comes into play. Like go check Iris, talk to your PI, like if you're concerned about it, like you probably have more time in your allocation than you realize. Because the other thing to remember is that like the time, like the wall clock time isn't the same as like the computer time that you get charged for. So there are calculations on the Q policy page that can tell you like how that calculation happens. I never remember. But if you're yeah, so maybe reading through that it will actually assuage your concern and running on a compute node is a good option. Yeah.
But that's the benefit of Iris and that dashboard. Just monitor your usage. And if you see something like did a job yesterday and it was more than you expected, or if are confused about it, then you can reach out, put in a ticket or whatnot, and we can clarify. But like Lippy said, most of the time the problem is that people's allocations get because if you don't use it, we do a allocation reduction, and more times it's people they get their allocations reduced from not using it versus running out.
Okay, so